Tomb Raider 1. You know, it's my favorite game. I love Tomb Raider 1. There's just something about it. The sense of mystery, the atmosphere, and the undercurrent of what could be described as horror. I mean, as you progress through the levels, they become scarier somehow. And you almost move from a sort of a realistic setting to an esoteric, almost magical setting. And given what the series became, it's very hard to actually remember Tomb Raider 1 in its original essence and glory. This was before Lara Croft became this pop culture sensation. I mean, just let that sink in. Tomb Raider was just a game. None of us had any idea that the game would go on and on. I mean, during that time, games just came and went. I mean, we didn't even have an idea it would get a sequel, let alone a series. Now, you're probably looking at this and thinking, what in good Christ is he playing? Tomb Raider never looked this bad. No, it did. This is Tomb Raider on the PlayStation 1, the original. Yes, the foggy, hazy memories are correct. Now look, I'm going to be a massive sellout here and use the PC CD-ROM version of Tomb Raider. Now the remasters present the PC CD-ROM upscale as the original version. Kind of. It's a half truth, I suppose. It's definitely not the original per se, as you saw there from the original. It looks like a living, breathing nightmare. But look, that's just the way games were back in the day. But yeah, it's definitely not the original. For one, the graphics have been touched up. You don't find the dithering, the warping and wobbling walls, the breathing walls. Everyone thought the walls were alive in the original Tomb Raider. And it was certainly an aesthetic which people are trying to replicate these days. And we can also see that the limits of the fog have been extended a bit. Not quite as foggy, not quite as murky. And at the risk of sounding like a horny teenager, the boobs on the back of Pierre's jacket have been changed also. Now she wears a bikini top. Now conservation is also about preservation. And the PS1 original I'm yapping about here, it's not on the remastered bundle. And that's okay. They never said it was going to be, packaged as one complete thing. You know, they're not going to say, here's the PS1 original, here's the PC CD-ROM upscale, and then here's our own version of it. Okay, so that's fine. They never promised me personally that. However, I do have a problem with using the term original, as it's not the original. And this is a point I will return to later on in the video about the game, the 1996 game in particular, being slowly erased. Warts and all, an original must be presented as such, or else, well, it's not the original. So yeah, for this video I'm going to be using the nicer looking version because it suits the goal of this video, which is to show off the structure and the texture of the levels. And in lieu of that, I need the ceiling and the walls visible in their entirety without the fog. And this will allow me to show off how the remaster has changed this particular structural layout without constantly having to navigate that fog. Now the fog was an important part of the game back in 1996, and as I said, along with the dithering, the weird wibbly wobbly wall textures, it all added to this sort of horror aesthetic, and most of us have fond memories of that sort of, wibbly wobbly horror vibe. And so whenever I discuss these particular aspects of it regarding the sort of the atmosphere or the mood, I will refer back to that original version. However, for 90% of the video, I will be using the PC CD-ROM version, or the remasters version of the quote-unquote original. And look, apart from the graphics and the fog, the actual layout of the levels are pretty much identical. The term pretty much doing a lot of heavy lifting there. I'll get to this eventually. And this tonal shift from Tomb Raider 1 to 2, it's often overlooked because there was a graphical shift at the time, and not many people could argue with that. And poor Lara Croft could barely keep up, but God love her, she tried. And unfortunately, the more she tried to keep up with other games and genres, the less she kind of looked like Lara Croft, and the less her games looked like Tomb Raider 1. Now, in this video, we're going to chart that change of tone and atmosphere from Tomb Raider 1 right up to the modern series. The most of the focus is going to be on Tomb Raider 1 to 4, with the anniversary edition and the remasters also being the main focus, because not only did they remaster Tomb Raider 1, but also 2 and 3. And then I'm going to show how the later games developed from the worst aspects of Tomb Raider 1 to 4, and then how the game tried to course correct. Now, it tried to course correct so many times that even the developers didn't know what Lara Croft or tomb raiding was anymore. And it all kind of got bundled under this notion of realism. And this notion of realism and what realism is, I'm going to show you in this video how that notion eventually sank the entire series without anyone ever realizing why. Now, of course, everyone remembers Angel of Darkness, which is a terrible course correction to the Tomb Raider series, and it failed miserably as a result of that. There was also the Tomb Raider Legend trilogy, which eventually fell off as well. And then we had the Tomb Raider 2013 prequel/reboot that has its own trilogy and that has its own problems. And that started infesting Tomb Raider from Tomb Raider 2 onwards. By the time this concept was fully cooked by Tomb Raider 2013, we were doing the cooking ourselves, and the crafting, and the other stuff we didn't have to do before. What about your tombs, Lara? And that to me sort of dovetails nicely into the idea of erasure. What is Lara Croft? What is Tomb Raider anymore? And when did this erasure start? And I'm going to focus on all that in good time. But yeah, it just had moved off. Whatever trajectory from Tomb Raider 2 that Lara was on, I couldn't keep up with it, and at times it looked like it could swing back around to the atmosphere and mystery of Tomb Raider 1, but it was going too fast, and it just propelled way too fast and way too far forward. And if we fast forward a little bit to 2024 when the remasters came out, now it had come back around, but it came back around with such force that it actually broke the original game. Now you're probably trying to figure out what the hell is he talking about. It's a faithful remaster of the game. It looks like Tomb Raider. They didn't change the levels, or the characters, or the weapons. I mean, if you're just having a casual look at it, it's essentially the same game. So much so that you can press a button and it just switches back to the quote-unquote original. It's basically a copy and paste of the original game, except the paste has a bit more graphical soundness to it. However, look a little bit closer and you'll soon understand the title of this video and its focus.
Let's go for a swim.
Oh, this looks nice underwater. Oh, the sky's a little bit... Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, there's the kayak section. Hey, this is pretty cool, actually. Okay. All the expansions, right? Midas. Not showing. Oh, there's the DLC. There's some Tomb Raider 1. The skateboard guy. Oh. Wait a second. Wait. A sky? Was there a sky in the original? Are they remastering Tomb Raider Anniversary? Yo! Did the Lost Valley always have a sky? Nah, you got it wrong. I'll check. Hang on, I need to go back through this trailer. They're not stupid enough to put a skybox everywhere and make the levels outside. Yeah, they did. They set the whole game outside. You see, ladies and gentlemen, that sky is not meant to be in the original Tomb Raider. And my argument today will be that it can never be. In fact, I will argue that Tomb Raider 96 very much stands as the black sheep of the Tomb Raider family, rather than a template it should have been. Now, I'll even go as far to argue that the mood and atmosphere in Tomb Raider 1 is accidental, and that it was more of a lightning in a bottle. And this can all be evidenced by the fact that the developers course corrected completely in Tomb Raider 2 and have been desperately trying to reclaim what Lara is and desperately trying to recreate that atmosphere, all the while never knowing what caused it in the first place. I'll give you a clue. It was above you the whole time. Now we finally made it to the beginning of the video, and let me start by saying Tomb Raider 1 has 4 unique locations, and location 1, which we'll be starting very soon, is of course Peru. Location undefined. Where in Peru exactly, we do not know. However, a Sherpa can be hired to get there, and it is easily noticeable by the big door on the mountain. After that, we're going to another undisclosed location, well, according to the game anyway. And that location is Greece. Yes, the fabled lost city of Greece. More on that later. The third to me location is of course Egypt. Again, location undisclosed, but not so undisclosed that you can't ride a motorbike down a well-defined path towards it. And then of course our last level is the Lost levels, the Atlantean levels if you will. And they're going to bring their own challenges, not just for Lara, but for me in the course of this video. So now, let's get started. Now, we have 4 levels in the Peru region. The first level is the caves, and it serves as an introduction to all the traps and some of the enemies you'll be facing for the next 3 or 4 levels. After overcoming some of those traps, you'll venture into the city of Vilcabamba, where more traps lie in wait. Succeed, and eventually you'll enter into the Lost Valley, where your prize is of course one step closer to the Tomb of Qualopec, where one part of the trifecta of the Skion is located. And you'll also find the solitary male gaze of Larsen. Now at this juncture I want you to bear in mind the time period of the game, the mid-90s, the lovely naff mid-90s, yes. And as much as we all have a great laugh about the mid-90s, we also have to remind ourselves that in the scope of the game where these tombs are hidden, it was a technologically advanced period, and during this time, if you're looking at archaeology or expeditions, we had satellites, phones, cameras, good cameras, infrareds, we even had robots. Some of the archaeological sites use robots. So yeah, it's quite simply our world, mid-90s. It's not a magical world per se. Magic does exist, but it's not known to people. It's kind of like Harry Potter, I suppose, is the best analogy. So yeah, the general public, not aware of dinosaurs existing, not aware of any of the artifacts Lara is going after. So, very important, in this world that the game has set up, you can't then have these tombs of Atlantean kings be easily found. Because if they were easily found, well then the general public would be aware of dinosaurs and would be aware of magic and would be aware of the lost civilization of Atlantis. As the game presents itself, the general public are not aware of those things. Now, judging by the journey there, it's not a great place to be, and any expedition here would be doomed. However, a Sherpa does manage to guide Lara here, suggesting that the place is somewhat known. Here in the first level of Tomb Raider, it's a very interesting door because when we see from the intro, it's an elaborate puzzle to get in here, and it's sort of a dangerous place at the very top of what looks like a very, very snowy peak. The door is difficult to get into, which suggests that the area is locked away and not any person can walk into it. So, this big old door into the caves presents us with a problem. The entranceway to these great places of Atlantean kings are not exactly hidden. This one marked by a large complicated door to which a Sherpa can guide Lara to. It's so bloody obvious. It's so out there. I mean, a Sherpa brings Lara there. Presumably a Sherpa from a village nearby. Presumably a village that is not attacked constantly by raptors and a T-Rex. And by Larsen probably. And yes, there's definitely places in South America that can remain hidden and lost. But this door here does not have any indication that it has been, well, lost. And if you really think about it, it's sort of blind luck that the place hasn't been found yet. Now, had it been under ice and snow and Lara had to dig to get to it, yeah, okay, I can buy that. But she doesn't. And so I have to put the blinkers on in the 1996 original and say, well, it wasn't found because, you know, insert whatever reason you have. That would have been a good thing to fix in the remasters, wouldn't it? Okay, so look, let's just pretend it's hidden under ice and that the Sherpa gets amnesia when he ever comes back. Actually, he doesn't come back, he dies. So that's sort of, I think Core Design fixed that issue themselves. They're like, wait, we can't have this door being known. We need a pack of wolves ASAP. Now, if we're going to be really, really charitable, and you know, I'm always very charitable to the 1996 original, let's just say that this door was under ice and it melted away when Lara began her search for the Skion. I'm willing to buy that, and I'm willing to go through this door, have it close behind me, and travel deeper and deeper and deeper underground to the Tomb of Qualopec. But I do not want to see the light of day again. If I see the light, or I see holes here and there, or back doors, side entrances, whatever. It's going to shatter the whole aesthetic and the atmosphere of the game. The 1996 original upholds this end of the bargain for me. Apart from one place in the Lost Valley, which we'll get to later, the 1996 game upholds its end of the bargain for the idea of a underground and enclosed tomb. Now, why am I making a big deal about this before we even get to the tombs? Well, it all fits in with the time period of the game I just mentioned. Something like this on a mountain and which a Sherpa can guide Lara to. That would indicate that it's somewhat known, or you could easily locate it. But look, I get it, that's on the original 1996 version though, and I don't blame the anniversary or the remaster for that. I blame them for leaning more into it rather than trying to resolve the issue of it. You know, the skybox only makes it worse, and it also makes redundant the issue at the same time. Like, one of the big things is like, am I inside or am I outside? The first game, the original game from 96 and the remaster struggle with this concept. So in the remaster, we'll just switch to it now, there is an opening here. Now, to me, this is like, it's very, very jarring because the door is here, and rather than solve that really ridiculous, complicated puzzle, Lara was up the top anyway. All she had to do was walk a couple of feet and drop down, and then the door is not needed anymore. The tombs in Peru and the levels here are all accessible now in multiple and easier ways than this big door. In fact, it's not even needed anymore, which makes the location here at the cave irrelevant. And the complicated door puzzle, which the anniversary edition decides to introduce, it just becomes utterly pointless now. Why do I care? Well, the ski-on. That's the reason you gave me. You're telling me that this ski-on is very important in the story. So why bother hiding it if it's that easy to find and that easy to get in here? Look, I get the traps. And they're there because the original builders of these places presumed, well, it wouldn't be impossible to find. Someone will find it eventually. But those same builders didn't also say, just make sure there's a few skylights here as well. I love a skylight and a chimney. You know, windows, put them in as well. As much as you can. And that's what the remasters and the anniversary edition do. Now look, we can't talk about realism without talking about the concept of light. And light is of course something which modern games strive to always perfect. Skyboxes, dynamic lighting, shadows. You know, all being lovely examples of how to make your game stand out in this modern age. However, what happens when you introduce these modern elements to older games? Older games such as Tomb Raider 1. Now the issue of the skybox in the Lost Valley and throughout the Peru locations, especially in the remaster, is a serious issue. At the outset, I will say that the reason the skybox is not there according to the original developers and a lot of people is technical limitations. So let's just have a pause there at the moment and say that technical limitations and not story expectations is the cause of this. However, in the 1996 original, you could just still use the story expectations as a reason for why there's no skybox in relation to, well, everything been hidden. But if we go with the graphical limitations thing and that there was supposed to be skyboxes everywhere, well then we have an issue. And people may point to various parts of the original levels here and there and say, well, the game was always meant to have these openings and that the graphics limited them from having a sky. Well, that's fine if you want to make that argument, but it doesn't take away from my original point. How did nobody find these places or get into them if there are multiple ways in? Indeed, setting aside the graphical limitations for the moment and just focusing on story expectations. Why would anyone building these tombs ever build multiple ways into them? And why would you ever bother making traps if you can just avoid them? So yeah, I mean, at times it seems the remaster's team of rule is, well, not should they put these skyboxes in, but rather could they? The latter statement qualified by the technical limitations conundrum we have, which does not exist in 2024 with the remaster, and it certainly didn't exist in 2007 with the anniversary edition. And so the answer seems to be yes, make as many skyboxes as you can. Who cares? Every opportunity they got to put a ceiling or a hole of light in, they did it. And they did it to the game's detriment. Another issue which arises in the city of Vilcabamba in level 2, and which permeates and horrendously dictates the level's understanding here and the level design going forward, is the idea of realism. Namely, how can we turn this place into a place that is livable? I mean, excluding the whole livable angle on the realism thing, why not just come across it from the viewpoint of the people building these traps? Why build them if a person can just follow the route through the holes in the ceiling and then just drop into the Tomb of Qualopec? And as we'll see later, that is entirely possible. Every level in Tomb Raider 1, the original, is designed to stop people from entering it. They're trap rooms, they're challenge places. So now we go to the remaster and then we see the same problems again, which is, oh look, there's the sky. And not only that, but someone has built something here to suggest that it was a feature originally. So what's the point of the big door on the mountain? Now look, the city moniker the developers gave it is incorrect, and they noticed that themselves. I mean, calling this place a city is ridiculous. But let's just stop for a second and just have a look around the area. What's in the area? There's a few stables, some pelts, and maybe some eating areas if we're being charitable. It's more of an outpost, somewhere the tribes just came and went to maintain the traps guarding Qualopec's tomb. No one lived here long term. In fact, given the precarious nature of the place, its reinterpretation by both the 2007 and 2024 remasters by extension seem almost laughable. Especially when we have a look at the 2007 Anniversary Edition. An edition, by the way, which I believe heavily influenced the 2024 remaster. Now there's a bit of an issue here for me because she starts off, as you can see from the cutscene here, it's in the middle of a snowy wasteland. She's up the top of a mountain. So a lot of snow, freezing temperatures. And this is also in the 2007 Anniversary Edition. And the remaster also, we see falling snow and we see snow everywhere. The problem is, when you get to the city of Vilcabamba, it doesn't seem to be in the snowy wastes anymore. We have skyboxes everywhere, but we have no snow. And then the Lost Valley is just a lush jungle that supports... Oh yeah, look, it's supporting dinosaurs which don't exist. I mean, dinosaurs don't survive in the icy wastes up a mountain. So what is the game trying to convey here to me? Now, if it's the original game, I can just say, this is all underground. When you see this stuff in Peru or anywhere in South America where you have the transition from a jungle to the highest part of the Andes, it's usually about 60 to 120 miles.
We keep on flying into the night. Inca people looking for a place to go. We are the Incas.
When you're playing this game, you get the sense that maybe she travels a couple of kilometers. And that's in keeping with the logic and lore of the game. The city of Vilcabamba and all the traps here are meant to what? Protect something within a 120 mile radius. Like the Tomb of Qualopec is not 120 miles from the big door. That would be a monumental type of civilization. So it's not true. So we're left with the dilemma then. As we'll see later in the video, when people are trying to argue that the Lost Valley is outside, the onus is on you to defend that. And it's very, very hard to defend the difference in biomes, snowy wastes and jungle, and also how nothing has been found. But look, we'll get to that later, but just as a pinpoint to note here, it's very jarring. Now, the Lost Valley is often the tipping point for any discussion about the inside-outside nature of Tomb Raider 1. Me personally, I thought it was inside. Now that might sound mad, but I always assumed that the Lost Valley was an indoor cave and that the skybox above was actually a ceiling. A cave ceiling that stretched high above. It made sense to me. It had to make sense because otherwise, why bother coming through the large, complicated door in the first level if Lara could just nip in here through the Lost Valley? However, in 2007 with the release of the Anniversary Edition, which heavily informs the remaster and its skyboxes, and indeed lore breaking, well, it has its own unique interpretation of what this area is. This is the Lost Valley in Tomb Raider Anniversary. When you played this for the first time, you were like, oh, it's outside. And that was my first indication that I was playing a completely different game from the rest of the world. And then my mind went mental. Now, I am sorry to sound like a broken record, but yes, it is the skybox again I'm going to refer to. And not just the skybox, but the realism. You see, in developing this, it had to shit over the original version. This isn't a homage, it's showing off. The game has only the merest relationship to the original. But worst of all, The levels had to be redesigned to make them fit into a more logical, lived-in aesthetic. I asked this before, and I'll ask it again. Who is living in these levels? Again, the lived-in vibes are here, and it's not difficult to see where the later remasters drew their inspiration from. In fact, much of the skyboxes in this 2007 game are used as templates for where to put the skybox in the remaster. Now, the remaster, okay?
Nice.
It's hard not to look at and say that's beautiful. It is beautiful. It is stunning. And you can't help but go, wow, that is amazing. But you can't also help but go, an open area with dinosaurs in the mid-90s would have been found long ago. However, if it's all underground, then yes, it would have been hidden. Another issue with all these skyboxes is that the entrance to the Tomb of Qualapec is actually at the beginning of the Lost Valley. So if you just stumbled through one of these skyboxes, well, the joke is on you then, City of Vilcabamba. You're not even needed anymore. The cardinal sin in these levels in the remaster is, of course, that the Tomb of Qualapec also has skyboxes in it, meaning the traps of the level are, well, irrelevant. This is the tomb itself. Skion was up there. There's Mr. Qualapec, the God King, and his two servants. One of them fainted. In the original here, we see fully enclosed seal in keeping with the hidden nature. Remaster. Is that a skybox? I don't know. It certainly looks like the beginnings of a skybox. The lighting would suggest that it is a skybox. In the remaster, we have a skybox. And what that's saying to me is the Tomb of Qualapec is not hidden, and the levels preceding it do not matter, because you can just climb into that. You see, you're telling me, you're signaling to me with the skybox that the previous levels were a waste of time, that the people who built the traps built them for nothing. And so by just adding in these skyboxes and thinking, yeah, they look pretty, but you break the lore and the history of the place and of the game. They just become computer game levels. Just challenge maps, which the later games did turn into. And so there's no point in having a story. And then we lose the atmosphere, and then we lose the investment. People seem to forget that atmosphere comes from the lore and the world we're dropped into. The more you break it, the more the game just becomes this paint by numbers thing. If you're going to break the internal logic of the game, then don't ask me to be invested in it. Don't bother putting a story in, or hiring voice actors, or spending a fortune making really nice graphics. Who cares? What's the point if the game doesn't make sense? The game just becomes a joke then. And we all know what happens when people spend a lot of money on a joke. So, as one big door closes, so too does another open. And so we toddle off now to the lost country of Greece. And, well, imagine Lara's surprise when she got there. Yes, folks, Greece is a real place with real people, and it might shock you to learn that if you're from outside of Europe or missed most of school, it no longer functions as a lost mythical land anymore. But all of this is okay to my mind in 1996, because back then the levels were very much hidden to a point. Now, the Greek levels are a mixed bunch, starting off with St. Francis's Folly, before descending into the bowels of the Colosseum. Hang a little right there, and we're in the Palace of Midas, before we enter the Cistern, and lo and behold, a little bit deeper, and we have the Tomb of Tehoken. Now, it goes without saying, the Greek levels are my favourite Tomb Raider levels. They are the epitome of Tomb Raider levels. And of course, when most people think of Tomb Raider 1, it is hard not to have some sort of an image of one of these levels appear in your mind. Now, the Greek levels is where the game decides to up its game. We see a number of new traps, a number of new enemies, and of course not quite our first human enemy. We had Larson in the last level. But now we have Pierre Dupont, who follows us throughout each of these levels, firing his magnums at us whenever he can. And don't you think you can kill him, because he is seemingly immortal here. However, with a few well-timed shots, Mr. Pierre runs off, and we are free to continue on our adventure. Now, in the spirit of the story, the Greek levels house one of the parts of the Skion, and of course that part belongs to our Atlantean king Tehoken. Now perhaps the most damning of the reinterpretations of Tomb Raider are the Greek levels, which require so much mental gymnastics to ignore both lore and history that any argument you might have in the last location for saying, well, they were never meant to be lost or hidden, well, that gets fully erased here. In fact, I will go on record to say that these locations are the most game-breaking locations here when it comes to Anniversary in 2007 and the remasters in 2024. These are the 4 trap rooms, and you basically grab the key from each of these rooms, Atlas, Tor, Neptune, Democles, and then you put the 4 keys in here, and this gives you access to the Colosseum, okay? And if you go into these rooms, there's various little traps and tasks to achieve to make sure you don't get the keys so easily. And these doors to these 4 trap rooms are opened by various levers around the room. It requires a bit of dexterity. You take your life into your own hands when you're trying to do it. It's not easy, basically. The remaster, as well as doing that, adds in skyboxes into the actual trap rooms themselves, behind the door. So you could have just dropped down here, grabbed the key, and then jumped back out again. You don't even need to open the door. The 1996 original, there's only one way in and out. So the levels are designed. Now, when I say the levels are designed, I'm talking about the people who actually built these levels, not the game designers. I don't know the lore. It has not been provided to me as to who built these levels and how they were building them. But there's a story to be told in the architecture. And the architecture will tell me that they build these levels to protect the Tomb of the Hoken and to ward off people. If you stumbled in here, you would die if you didn't know what you were doing. One way in and out would lead you to, like, you come in here and you're like, I don't know what to do, and then you make your way down and then you see 4 doors and you're like, okay, the environment is telling me what I need to do. But with the remaster, you come in here and you're like, do I leave this way? Because this is like, skyboxes are entrances and exits. So the more you put in the level, the more you upset the design of the level. The architecture then does not make any sense. And the big culprit down here is in the Democles. You come in here, so you have to traverse all these swords. Like, once you grab the key here at the back, the swords are primed and they dangle above you, and then you have to really be careful to make your way out. But the remaster just puts a skybox here. So you could just jump down here, grab the key, and then you see all the swords dangling above, ready to fall on you. And you're like, screw that, I'm going back up here this way. And then just come back down into the Neptune room above. They don't even think about it. You know, that's the annoying thing about the remasters, that they didn't even think about the lore or the design of the levels. They just thought skyboxes look lovely. People just want a graphical upgrade of the game. That's okay if you want to do a graphical upgrade of the game. It's a beautiful upgrade of the game. But I could have done without the skyboxes because they ruin everything. The Tor room here is fully enclosed in the 96 original. And then the remaster decides to add in these sort of skybox, window box things. Looks like Grand Central Station now. The developers don't look at the room. They don't look at things like from a research point of view or analyze it. If you analyze this room, it's just mental. It's just like giant Thor's hammer ready to crush you. There's like a lot of electricity here ready to murder you. And then you climb up here and you do a death-defying jump over here and you grab the key. But the remaster, like, and again, it's the idea of realism. Like, it's not, it could be more realistic. How are people going to see in here? It's not really realistic in the first place, is it? You wouldn't come across Thor's hammer just hanging around the place. Like, none of this level makes sense. It's not supposed to. They're supposed to be trap rooms. Like, the Tomb of the Hoken is the most important level, and everything before it is designed to murder you, to stop you getting into it. And I want you to take note of this giant door with 4 locks on it. What does a door like that tell you? Are they trying to keep someone or something locked in? Or are they trying to keep me locked out? Well, my friends, it turns out it was neither of those things. And thus, without thinking about it, broke the game's immersion and story completely. The Colosseum in the original Tomb Raider. So you go through the door after doing the St. Francis Folly. At this point now, you're just gone further and further underground. This to me is very indicative of what the original designers were trying to tell us, which is whoever designed this place has form for building stuff underground and integrating it underground. The remaster, if we just have a look, decides that no, you're going, there's the sky again. I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but what's the point of the door coming into the Colosseum? What's the point of St. Francis Folly as a trap room if you can just come in through the ceiling? And holy God, when you get to the next level, that really becomes evident. Strap yourselves in. We're going to the world famous, well, according to the remaster anyway, and the anniversary edition, the world famous tourist site, the Colosseum. Now this bit here, like if you think that's breaking your immersion, hang on to your seats, you know. So we come down here and then we come up here, and in the original game you come in here and it's just oh my god, there's a big massive Colosseum, and your mind goes mental because you're just like, gee, did they have gladiatorial games in here, and what is it? Like it very much follows on from the idea of the Folly. Someone's just like, no, I just built a gladiatorial arena because I could. And you look up above you, it's the same at the Lost Valley, okay? There's a part of my brain that's going, that's black because the cavern is so high up, it's just dark. And you look at any of those, you know, cave diving footage, you'll see that when they look up to the ceiling, it looks like this. I'm like, oh my god, I'm really, really deep underground now. The end of the level is here. So it's in the this balcony box with Mr. Ape. And then you go down here and then you enter the Palace Midas. The remaster decides to do this. I mean, I don't know what this is. Anyone in Greece is now like, how dare you? We're not that stupid that we didn't notice this. Like, this is ridiculous. Where's the, like, I've been going underground, by the way, according to the logic of the map. So where's the Folly? Where's the Folly on this map? It's not here, and they couldn't be arsed. But it just breaks the game, because it's like, oh, I guess the Tomb of the Hokum was a well-known thing. I guess they wanted the Skion to be found. This is a particularly damning point the remasters are keen to make, drawing inspiration from not only the shift and tone in realism that began with Tomb Raider 2, but more to the point, the shift in tone which came with the anniversary edition in 2007. So we have here the Colosseum in anniversary. We have the skybox. That was another moment where you're like, huh, it was supposed to be outside then, was it? Everything I said about the remaster with regards to progression through this level is broken by that entrance in here. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is the Colosseum, the famous tourist site in Greece. You know, at this point I'm just expecting to meet a load of tourists along my way. Some sort of a gift shop perhaps at the Tomb of the Hokum. I mean, why not? Anyway, maybe things will get better. Maybe from this point on we can have underground tombs. We can have tombs. Now, the Palace of Midas is perhaps the most game-breakery of levels in the Greek levels, as well as serving as a middle hub between the earlier levels and the later Tomb of the Hokum. It also sort of marks, metaphorically or whatever, you know, the movement between the real world and the magical world. In this level, you have the gold hand of Midas. So you're kind of moving into a sort of a mysterious, magical world. So you've left the real world, basically. Indeed, in highlighting that this is the most important section in these levels, the statue of Midas, and in particular his hand which can turn base metals and Lara into gold, is quite an issue. Indeed, apart from the very obvious skybox in the actual Midas room, the most glaring and obvious skybox is at the beginning of the level. And with the skybox here, you've John and Mary on their Sunday hike. They're like, oh, there's actually a lost civilization here beneath our feet. And Mary's having a great time. And Mary's like, you know what? Take a picture of me on this hand. It'd be hilarious. And then Mary turns to gold and dies. And then John has to go back to the Greek government and say, my wife turned to gold in a place you never told us about. Of course, I've been very cruel to the remasters, and rightly so, for the thesis of this video, which is to show that the mood and atmosphere of the games are being, well, eroded. But the 2024 remaster does not shoulder all the blame, for it had a template long before that, and while the 2007 game struggled to realize the Peru levels in Tomb Raider 1996, well, they had a much more difficult time trying to understand Greece. So here we are in Palace Midas, which, again, if you're looking for where they took inspiration for taking the roof off the beginning of the level, here it is. They've also moved the statue out into the courtyard, and just basically move some stuff around. But again, it's all open, and it's a feature that will be found in other parts of these Greek levels. It's got another, like the ceiling on that is exactly the same. It's just there's a hole in the ceiling, but it's built into it, which is even worse, because it meant then that whoever designed these levels designed them to be found, which is counter to the whole idea of hiding something. There appears to be this pervasive and incessant need to open up the roof whenever they get an opportunity. Asper seems to hate the fact that these levels are underground, and their skyboxes are, well, game-breaking at the best of times and annoying at the worst of times. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, our trip to the hidden and lost Tomb of the Hoken has been, well, not so hidden and not so lost. If we look at the tomb itself in the original, it's all underground and there's no attempt to have any skybox, not even one due to graphical limitations, because they could have stuck in a black foggy area to represent a dark sky like many people have suggested in the Lost Valley. However, that does not seem to be the case here, and there's nothing really here in these levels, in these later levels of Greece, to suggest that Lara is anywhere but underground. And thus, when the remasters decide in their wisdom to add skyboxes everywhere, well, it just makes the previous levels utterly useless. If the levels are open plan and there are multiple ways into them, you would think someone like Lara Croft would just skip most of the levels then. Indeed, if you're trying to figure out why Asper decided in their wisdom to take the roof off these levels, then look no further than our habitual Roof Busters, our Tomb Raider Anniversary Edition. Again, in keeping with the idea that you're going deeper and deeper underground, the original really maintains that. The remaster decides, do you know what, you need some light here. And again, that to me doesn't look like that is, what would that be? Let me just try and judge the height of that. Let's say I'm being charitable and just say it's a 10-foot thing. Okay, so 10 feet separate people walking across this and a tomb of an Atlantean king holding the greatest source of power humanity has ever not seen. Whoever built the Tomb of the Hoken was like, get some air in here as well. We need ventilation. Well, you can have one or the other. You can have like stale, melty air, or you can have terror unleashed on humanity. This part of the Tomb of the Hoken, it's near the end. You're sort of like, you're a bit sick of this level at this point. But look, they couldn't help themselves. They just said, stick in as much light and vegetation as possible. The Tomb of the Hoken, by the way, the actual resting place of the Atlantean king, it's probably about 5 minutes from here, if even. Why bother going through the Colosseum, Francis Folly, Palace Midas, and the Cistern, when you can just get yourself an old blowtorch, cut yourself in here, and you're in. You're in, you know? But anyway, drop in here. And at this point, when I hit this water as a teenager, I'm like, I'm under the sea. I'm in one of those bell jar type scenarios where I'm under the sea off the Greek coast, and oh my God, I mean, your heart drops when you see this. You're like, Jesus, or Zeus, Zeus, I can't believe this place is here. And you get this weird sense that you're like almost in the center of the earth, and the excitement is palpable. And in here is the Tomb of the Hoken itself. As I said at the beginning of the video, remastering involves preservation, and preservation involves not only keeping the aesthetic there, but also the mood and the atmosphere. And yes, the internal logic and lore of the game itself. The addition of skyboxes in the remaster and an anniversary edition ruined this internal logic of the game, and also interferes with the internal history of the games. And nowhere is this more evident than in the Tomb of the Hoken. I mean, what were you expecting? That's a Santa Claus chimney, if ever I seen one. Pagan god my arse. It's just, I don't even know. It's like, no, you wouldn't normally see that because it's part of the cutscene. As soon as you walk into this room, you would never have access to that. But you can see the light coming down it, and that tells me then that Asper have no idea what they're doing. I mean, there was skyboxes before this anyway, so it doesn't matter. I mean, it's just ridiculous, you know. Again, bury me in a place where light cannot find. Make sure no one finds this powerful artifact or me. Sure thing, boss, no problem. And then the workers just decided, make sure you put in a skybox feature here. T. Hoken loves a chimney. Put in a chimney in this tomb. The Greek levels are all perfectly realized as being underground in the original. Any issues with the Colosseum being outside are blown completely away by both its location and by the trapdoor in the Folly, which is negated by you saying the Colosseum is outside. Indeed, if it is outside, why do I need 4 keys from the Folly to enter it? It can be one way or the other, but if it's both, then the game is, well, stupid. And nothing matters in it. And if that's the hill you want to die on, then I have a trilogy of games to sell you, because they also don't care about logic or tomb raiding either. In fact, I would go as far to say that the more people keep pushing she can't be underground for X reason, the more you'll get a Tomb Raider game set in Siberia, where she just ends up fighting special forces while realistically crafting her own ammo and medpacks. They might make for an exciting game here and there, but they don't make for a good Tomb Raider game. We come now to our third location, Egypt. Location undisclosed, but, well, you can drive to it on the motorbike, so it must be too undisclosed. Now, to me, the Egypt levels, they're good. They're good levels, but you kind of get the sense at this point that the developers put all their effort into the first 2 regions. Every time I go and replay this game, I'm just like, oh no, I forgot about these levels. There's just something about them. I don't know what it is. Yeah, not my favorite levels. Sanctuary of the Skion is a great level, and then aspects of Khamun and Obelisk are good. The Sanctuary of the Skion sort of marks the last time you're sort of impressed with the game. And here Lara will take care of panthers, mummies and different variations of mummies before finally meeting Larson again for the last time. And don't think I'm being easy on Tomb Raider 1996. The game, as I mentioned, suffers also from these hidden in plain sight locations. The big door on the mountain in Peru, the St. Francis's Folly, and now we have what looks like a big tomb or temple in Egypt. In the cutscene for the Egypt level here, the city of Khamun, she rides a motorbike down the valley and approaches what the game would like to describe as a lost tomb. The game does something very interesting here because it basically says, hey, there's no door she entered in here, so you're picking up with her after she did something to get in here. And it's not obvious where she has come from. And this was fun. Like in the original game, you're like, okay, I've no idea how she gets in here. I don't care. The important thing is that no one else looks like they can get in here. But then we have the anniversary edition and then later on the remasters, and they decide, no, hang on a sec, how did she get in here? And then in answering that, they open these levels up then to massive issues regarding how is it lost, how did no one find this, etc, etc. The remaster and the anniversary edition are admittedly beautiful interpretations of these levels, and interpretation is the key word there. For if you interpret these levels as now being outside and out in the open and accessible through many different skyboxes and ways in, it sort of loses the edge that the original 96 game had, which was that Lara was delving deeper and deeper into these places. In fact, a common problem with the original game in these levels is the fact that the end of this region, or these levels, is found at the beginning of the first level. Egypt consists of 3 levels: the city of Khamun, the obelisk of Khamun, and then finally the sanctuary of the Skion. However, with the introduction of the skybox, it raises questions about how this sanctuary of the Skion remained hidden, and particularly why there are so many hurdles for Lara to jump over in both the city and obelisk of Khamun when the door is right there. Now, we can of course hand wave many of the 1996 original's issues away with saying that, well, if it's all enclosed, then it doesn't really matter. If no one can get into the city of Khamun, well then their entrance into the Sanctuary of the Scion is null and void. However, the biggest issue with the 2007 and 2024 remasters is that with the skyboxes, you can actually access the end of the Sanctuary of the Scion, which completely negates having the previous two levels, as it does in Peru and in Greece. And we can see here that the Sanctuary of the Scion in the Anniversary Edition, same thing. They have to have a light shaft coming in here. It's kind of similar to the remaster. They use the same sort of skybox just above its head, shining down on its face. Although I will give the Anniversary Edition credit. They did move the Scion to the bottom of the level, which is where it should be. Like, you shouldn't have to traipse back, loop back on yourself in the earlier part of this level to get the Scion. It just makes no sense. It belongs down the bottom of it. And I do agree with the two boyos that you should need the other two bits of Scion to access the third one. It does make sense from a story point of view because it is a trifecta. They do all belong together as one piece. So yeah, I agree with them on that. And we'll challenge them to a wrestling match on the other stuff. Now, it's very hard to look at these places as locked behind keys and elaborate traps and elaborate doors when it's meant to be set in modern Egypt, especially in these outdoor areas where you would expect that these elaborate looking tombs and elaborate looking doors would be seen and would be found by many modern archaeologists. However, this is not the case. Unfinished Business can be seen as the first attempt to remaster, and indeed the first time to remaster the series itself. As I said before, it is a remake of the city of Khamun. However, it is a measured remaster, since the city of Khamun, although underwater now, does not break the internal logic of the original game. As I said though, when it moves outside, then it becomes an issue. Whatever the answer is, it can't really be normal though. It can't be just modern Egypt, because these temples will be found, and the locks on the door certainly wouldn't still be there. Now, if anyone is of the millennial vintage like myself, you may have noticed something strange about those little stars. Maybe they tickle the little part of your brain you forgot about. They do look familiar, don't they? And so we see here at this juncture that maybe it wasn't about graphical limitations. Maybe it was about forging a new path for Lara, one which they didn't really like from Tomb Raider 1. Indeed, the direction Lara moved from Tomb Raider 2 onwards for the rest of that PlayStation 1 series, it seems to me that Tomb Raider 1 is the sort of black sheep of the family. Indeed, when we look at modern developers with both the Anniversary and Remaster Edition, Tomb Raider 1 is more of an inconvenience than anything else. Now, to cap off the tankless obelisk of Khamun level, we enter into the Sanctuary of the Scion, and I think rather than going through the whole level bit by bit, trying to find every single skybox, and there are many, I'd like to focus instead on the Sanctuary itself. This is the way. Of course it is, because it's the only other way. So we come down here, and we go through the legs, it's quite sexual, and then we come up here, and this eventually comes all the way up. And you're like, okay, cool. It's a bit long. It's a bit of a waste of a level. I really do think they ran out of enthusiasm by these later levels. I don't know in what order they made them. I don't know if that information is out there, but I would I would believe that this was probably in the last week. They're just like, come on, wrap it up. We don't even know if this game's going to be worth it. So look, you put the thing in there, you get that on the other side, down you go, and you come into this room.
I got a pain in my brain from you, and it's telling me funny ideas now, like to shoot you to hell.
Now who's a bitch? Now who's a bitch, Larson? Where's your Scion now? I believe it's here somewhere. Yeah, there it is there. And the remaster decides to... now, I think... See, that's a skybox, okay? But I think they built it, okay? And they basically said, well, hang on a sec, we can't have the outside world bleed into this place because that would make no sense. The Skion would not be hidden. Someone would have found it. And then they did some sort of stupid compromise with it, like, well, we are known as the skybox people. What else are we like, people know us as the skybox people. And then someone said, just put this on it? What is this? This is not how light works. Light does not go through sandstone. But yeah, it's just another one of those ridiculous decisions where they started on the first level in the caves and they're just like, we better keep it going. Because why bother going back through all the level? Like, I always understood Lara as in the Tomb of Qualpec, she grabs the Skion and then she just go all the way back out through the entrance to come in the caves. It's the same with the Tomb of the Hoken. She gets it all the way back up. She has to redo the Francis Folly thing to get back up the top. And then she comes out the door of the folly she entered in. That's, to me, is like, that's a tomb. There's only one way in and one way out. Now, I've already made mention of the front door issue into the city of Kamoon and whether there should be one or not. Most people don't notice it. There is a back door into the Sanctuary of the Skion on these other levels. Apparently, that's what it seems like. And it's there in the cutscene. She comes out and we're kind of like, oh, sorry, where have you come from, Lara? Because she's now on a coast and Natla's yacht is there. And you're kind of saying to yourself, okay, so is there maybe there is multiple ways into it. It's not super specific. I mean, another way of looking at this is that this could be the way in and out of the Sanctuary of the Skion, and that in the opening cutscene when she's driving there on her bike, that temple is not the entranceway to the city of Kamoon. That's just a landmark she was using. We don't see it, but maybe Lara travelled around that area for like hours and hours and hours until she found this cave. And then this cave maybe went underwater, and then after, she held her breath for a long time or whatever, then she ended up in the city of Kamoon. Again, though, the important thing is that it's open to interpretation. There isn't a bloody skybox in the city of Kamoon where you're like, okay, that's how she got in. Like, it doesn't make things definite. It leaves it open to interpretation. Because the more you try and open these levels up to realism, the more the game falls apart. Look, at this point, I think I've made the point without labouring it too much. I get it. I'm a mental case labouring the point about the sky. Old man yells at sky. Yes, that is me. But you'll have to admit that so far it's making you think a little bit differently about how these games are designed and how they are interpreted by later generations. Is it really too much to ask for a Tomb Raider level that's enclosed and isolated and which doesn't just end with a type of slapstick joke?
Oh, for God's sake.
Now, although I did mention that the last couple of levels in the Lost Islands are not really tombs per se, I think it's important that we just take a quick look at them because it does really highlight just how Asper view these games. It's also a great excuse for me to discuss my favourite Tomb Raider character of all time. Yes, folks, the perfect person for the job. A man from New York on a skateboard.
You firing at me, huh? Ain't nobody else here. You must be firing at me.
In the original, Natla, one of the rulers of Atlantis, decided that she would hire a guy on a skateboard with Uzis to help her. That's what he looks like in the remaster. They did a little bit of he looks like more of a doofus. Now, I'm not going to go easy on the original game. With the Lost Islands, you kind of have to do a little bit of hand waving. Where exactly is this Lost Island? Like, it seems to be in the Mediterranean. Again? The Mediterranean is not an unmapped or, untraveled location. So where is it? I mean, in the original, it's a volcano that explodes. That's fine, that's no problem. But when you take like Anniversary Edition into account and the remasters with the skyboxes everywhere, you're just kind of expecting UNESCO to greet Lara and the rest of them at the Lost Island. You know, they're like the hands on their hips, the Navy and the Air Force is there, and they're like, welcome to the World Heritage Site of Atlantis. Of course we knew you were going to come here. But yeah, it's very much just one of these places in lava in the remaster now, okay? We have a skybox. Now, the lore about this is that it's known as the Lost Island. If everything is underground, I don't mind that. In this remastered version from 2024, you can't really do that because Lara gets here on a speedboat, and speedboats are not really equipped to go that long a distance. So this Lost Island is somewhere a little bit away from Egypt, so you go into the Mediterranean, and that's really it. Like when we saw the intro, that's exactly what happened. They left a tomb in Egypt and drove here on a speedboat. Well, a big boat, you know, certainly not something that could travel for like days and days and days. And Lara didn't certainly stay under a load of coats for days and days and days. This to me is like, okay, well, this place should be found. And bear in mind, there is a cutscene where this whole thing blows apart and is revealed as a pyramid. That hasn't happened yet. So how has no one spotted this place before? Now, they say a picture paints 1,000 words, and rather than me yapping for another little bit, I'm just going to put a few images up to show just how much Asper thinks that the Lost Island is lost. It also highlights Asper's understanding of geography and just how far light travels underground, especially when there's things in the way. Enjoy. So there you go, Asper ruined Tomb Raider 1, but then so did the Anniversary Edition. And in the next section, I'm going to show you another game which ruined Tomb Raider 1. But for now, we're just going to see off Natala and her plans.
Those runts Qualopec and Tehokan had no idea. The cataclysm of Atlantis struck a race of languoring wimps, plummeted them to the very basics of survival again. It shouldn't happen like that.
Or like this.
Hatching commences in 15 seconds.
Too late for abortions now.
Not without the heart of the operation.
No!
10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Ah, Jesus Christ.
But Natala's big baby soon goes down in a hail of bullets, and you're off then to finish her off as well. Yes, she did survive that fall. But she won't survive this. I'll see you later, Natala. Best of luck to you. I'll see you in 2 minutes around the world. So there you go, the world is saved, and if it's the 1996 original, the world didn't even know it was in danger, or that it was saved. But if it's the Anniversary Edition or the remaster, well sure, every Tom, Dick and Harry knew about it, because they just looked through the skybox.
Motivating rhythm of life. Motivating rhythm of life with a healing rhythmic synergy. Motivating rhythm of life. Motivating rhythm of life with a healing rhythmic synergy.
Basically, the levels thus far in the remasters have been very much out there in the open and have zero atmosphere as a result, in my opinion. They look pretty, but like most pretty things, you need a personality after a while. And having none of its own, apart from some borrowed, half-remembered love for 1996, the remaster game is a terrible reminder that just because you can do something better doesn't mean you should. You see, there's no sense of progress. I mean, if you can just enter the Sanctuary of the Scion through the ceiling, then why bother doing the other levels? The more lazy you get in your level design, the more I don't want to bother to engage with it. Where is the sense of progression? The sense of having Lara by her side and helping her out? She's like a piece of thread from the beginning of a cave. She is the only line in and out of the level. And the more we see of the sun, the more that we see that she can escape from these levels. The less danger we feel, the more connected we feel to the real world we are trying to escape. You see what they're doing here, don't you? They are not remaking Tomb Raider 1, they are aligning it with the rest of the series, and to the detriment of the series. As much as I hate the fact that the tombs in Tomb Raider 2 and 3 have light in and out of them, and are open plan. The games were at least designed with them being like this from the jump anyway. Retroactively going back and putting skyboxes in the tombs from Tomb Raider 1 is not paying homage to Tomb Raider 1. Tomb Raider 1 is not set up to be like the rest of the series. It stands as its own thing, and that's a detriment to the designers of the later games. They don't want to emulate that design anymore, and yet they desperately try and figure out what made the first game so popular. Here's a clue. Look up. The 1996 game just has the perfect idea that it's all underground. You believe you're just traveling deeper and deeper through a mine, and eventually you end up in Atlantis. Now this is not too far away from the story of the 1950s journey to the center of the Earth, where they travel deeper and deeper underground, eventually coming to the lost city of Atlantis. I mean, there's even an underground sea, which is great.
It's a sea.
It's an ocean with waves and currents.
The ocean of the underworld.
Some earthquake before the beginning of history cracked wide open the great sea, and through the fissures poured this. The fissures closed again. No map ever recorded the Sotnuse motion.
And you really do believe that sense of mystery and traveling deeper and deeper underground. That sense of adventure where things don't work out the way you think they will, and the whole world exists beneath your feet, like Hollow Earth or Lost Worlds. And it was all there in the original, and it was ripe for the picking, and the anniversary edition and the remasters decided to be lazy and just change it. And it really does lean into the idea that the original 1996 Tomb Raider was a lightning in a bottle. And when one listens to the director's commentary from the original creator, it only furthers this resolve I have that they didn't know what they were doing, and what we got in 1996 was a miracle.